create a little firmer surface for your practice today. We'll be doing some gentle chair yoga. And so I invite you to have a seat and maybe noticing your breath. So you might start by noticing your breath. And maybe you might notice the pacing of your breath, like are your inhales and exhales similar in length or are they different? Maybe as you're noticing your breath, you might let your breath flow naturally. Another option might be to invite the breath to slow and deepen. So you could invite your breath to slow, maybe moving your breath into your belly. You might have your eyes opened or you could have them closed. You're welcome to keep breathing as you are. Another option might be to count your breaths, maybe making the inhales and exhales equal in length. So you can count to whatever number you like at whatever pace. One way to do that might be counting to 4 as you inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slight pause, and maybe as you exhale, you might count 4, 3, 2, 1, and pause. Maybe inhaling again for 4. And maybe exhaling for 4. And you're welcome to breathe at your own pace. Maybe noticing movement in your belly or chest as you breathe. You might notice it somewhere else. Or maybe not at all. And perhaps turning your head to one side. So you might be turning your head to one side, maybe turning it part of the way, or you could turn it as far as you can. You have a choice. And if your head is turned to the side, you might bring it back to center and maybe turning your head the other way. So you might be turning your head to one side, maybe turning it part of the way, or you could turn it as far as you can. You have a choice. And if your head is turned to the side, you might bring it back to center and maybe tilting your head to one side. So you might be tilting your head to one side. Maybe so your ear is moving in the direction of your shoulder. Maybe noticing your breath. And if your head is tilted to the side, you might bring it back to center and maybe switching sides. So you might tilt your head the other way. So you could be tilting your head to one side. Maybe noticing some sensation in the sides of your neck. You might notice it somewhere else. Or maybe not at all. You might be noticing your breath. If your head is turned to the side, you might bring it back to center and maybe moving your shoulders. So one way to move your shoulders might be to roll your shoulders, maybe rolling them forward or maybe rolling them back. And you could roll them with your arms at your sides, or you could move your elbows with your shoulders. So you have a choice. You might have your elbows moving too, or you might have only your shoulders moving with your hands by your sides. You have a choice. And if you've been moving your shoulders, you might bring them back to center and maybe turning to one side. So you might be turning to one side, maybe placing your opposite arm on the leg that you're turning towards. Perhaps noticing sensation in your back, maybe in your neck. You might notice it somewhere else. You may not notice any sensation at all. And if you're turned to one side, you might make your way back to center and maybe switching sides. So you could turn the other way, maybe turning to one side, perhaps placing your opposite arm on the leg that you're turning towards. Maybe noticing the breath. And if you're turning to one side, you might make your way back to center and maybe placing your hands on your legs. So you might place your hands on your upper legs, and maybe as you're inhaling, you might move the belly forward, maybe lifting your chest and your chin. And perhaps as you exhale, you might round your spine, maybe lowering your chin towards your chest. Perhaps inhaling, you might move your belly forward, maybe lifting your chest and your chin. Perhaps as you exhale, you might round your spine, maybe lowering your chin to your chest. You're welcome to do that a couple more times, maybe following your own breath. Maybe noticing sensation in your back, maybe somewhere else. And perhaps the next time you inhale, you might make your way back to center. And if you'd like, you might reach one arm up overhead. So you could reach one arm up towards the sky and maybe stay here. Another option might be to lean to the other side. So you might be leaning to one side, maybe noticing sensation in your top shoulder, or you might notice it somewhere else, or maybe not at all. And if you're leaning to the side, you might lift back up to center. And if your arm is lifted, you could lower your arm and maybe switching sides. So you might reach your other arm up overhead, maybe lengthening towards the sky. And you could stay here, or maybe leaning to one side. So you could be leaning to the other side. Maybe noticing your breath. And if you're leaning to the side, you might lift back up to center and perhaps lowering your arm if it's lifted. And if you'd like, you might extend one leg out in front of you on the floor. So you could straighten one leg, placing your heel on the floor, and maybe lengthening your spine to the sky. You could stay here. Another option might be to hinge at your hips and fold forward, maybe placing your forearms on your thighs, or you could place your hands on the floor. You have a choice. Maybe noticing your breath. And maybe lifting back back up. You might switch sides. So if your leg is extended, you might bring it back. Perhaps extending your other leg out in front of you. Maybe lengthening your spine to the sky. Maybe staying here. Or maybe hinging at your hips to fold forward. You have a choice. And you're welcome to notice your breath. Maybe noticing movement in your belly or chest as you breathe. And if you're folded forward, you might lift back up. And if your leg is extended in front of you, you could bring it back and perhaps crossing one leg over the other. So you might cross one ankle over the other thigh, maybe opening your knee to the side. So you might be in this figure 4 type shape. And maybe staying here. So you might lengthen your spine to the sky. Another option could be to hinge at your hips and fold forward, maybe placing your hands on your leg or the floor. You have a choice. You're noticing your breath. And perhaps releasing, so you might place both feet on the floor and maybe switching sides. So you could cross your other leg over. So maybe one leg, your ankle is over your thigh. Maybe your knee is going towards the side. And perhaps lengthening your spine to the sky. You might stay here or you might fold forward. You have a choice. You're welcome to notice your breath. Maybe noticing sensation in the outer hip of your top leg. You might notice it somewhere else. Maybe not at all. And perhaps releasing. So you might place both your feet on the floor and maybe shifting your hips from side to side. So you might place your weight on one side of your bottom, maybe shifting to the other side. So you might move from side to side, maybe noticing your breath. You might notice sensation in your belly or chest as you breathe. Maybe settling back in the center. If you'd like, you might, as you inhale, you might reach your arms up overhead. And as you exhale, you might move your hands through heart center down by your sides. You're welcome to do that again. Maybe as you're inhaling, you might reach your arms overhead. Perhaps as you're exhaling, you might lower your hands down by your sides. Maybe as you inhale, you might reach your arms overhead. And you could bring your hands through heart center, or you might fold forward, maybe placing your hands on your legs or on the floor. And perhaps noticing your breath. Maybe widening your feet and legs. Make room for the breath. And if you're folded forward, as you inhale, you might lift up halfway. So you might place your hands on your shins. And maybe as you exhale, you fold. And perhaps as you inhale, you might reach your arms overhead. And maybe as you're exhaling, you might move your hands down by your sides. And you're welcome to pause here while we rest for about 30 seconds. And you might stay where you are to rest. You might lean back in your chair. You're welcome to come to the floor to rest, as long as you're able to get up from the floor. You're welcome to notice your breath. And I'll quiet my voice for these last 10 seconds of rest. Maybe continuing to notice your breath. You're welcome to stay resting where you are longer. Or if you'd like, you might make your way back to seated. It's been my pleasure to guide your practice today. Peace. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube page if you haven't.